Thank you for auditing the always positive new music review show hosted by a French professor who's recording in his recently deceased father's home. We're getting this ready to sell. There's way too much noise up at my house, so it's kind of a weird environment to be recording a very different style video. I'm going to be reviewing an album, Mann Beisst Hund, by O.G. Keemo, and as you can tell from the title, I am calling this Good Kid, Mad Germany. That's an intentionally provocative title to draw a parallel between the Kendrick Lamar album Good Kid, Mad City and this album from last year by O.G. Keemo. Much like Good Kid, Mad City, it's a movie of an album. It's a sort of thinly connected narrative that you can sort of piece together with multiple characters that are actually just like representing different sides of the main character, which is the rapper himself, with the primary theme being survivor guilt. The survivor's guilt of getting out of the hood, or in German, getting out of the Siedlung. I'm going to be speaking a little bit of German in this video. My German is not good. Ich spreche kein Deutsch. So we'll see how that goes. But I like trying to speak German, at the very least. 20 Zigaretten, Staubsauger. So, it's this interesting album where it really isn't the story of, African Americans in the American ghetto. It's the story of recent immigrants, first, second generation immigrants to a European city. Okay, that's really what this is about. It's sort of about being Muslim in Europe. It's about living in these sort of state-created houses, living at the outskirts of society. And this survivor's guilt, this narrative, this fact that, Good Kid, Mad City is a movie of an album, and Mann Beisst Hund, which means man bites dog, is its own movie as well. Ironically, in the actual album, in the last song, he says, Doch ist nicht hinter dem Kendrick Vergleich, ja. Which means, I don't stand for the Kendrick comparisons. Yeah. So he himself understands that he does not want to be, he gets this analogy to Kendrick and he doesn't want me to make it. But I'm sorry, I have to do it. It is, I think, the best way to approach this and a good argument as to why you, statistically, the American viewer, should catch up with this album. Now, of course, the problem is always, with these kinds of analogies, you have to understand both sides of the analogy in order for it to make sense. And I don't really understand German rap that well. I don't really understand O.G. Keemo. I feel like I understand European rap fairly well as a genre. Some of the common traits, whether it be French or Italian or English, But still, so I'm going to do my best. But please, if you are a fan of O.G. Keemo, tell me in the comments, what did I miss? What did I get wrong? If you're a fan of Kendrick, what did I miss? What did I get wrong? And now you're wondering, why am I reviewing this album in the first place? Why am I reviewing this album in this oddly echoing chamber of my father's living room? Very sparse living room. It was a Patreon request. So I am going to be discontinuing very soon the option of paying a certain amount of money to have me review any album of your choice. It's not that I don't like doing it. Maybe I'll keep it alive in the summer. I think I will. I think I'm just going to discontinue it during the school year because I just don't have the time. And I want to spend a lot of time. I want to spend a lot of care on all these things. I don't like listening to anything and just doing something quick. So, this was sponsored by someone named Boden, a German fan, German auditor. And in the end, I realized I was coming up on Thursday. I haven't done any international rap in a while. And even though this is a really old album, from 2022, like about a year and a half old, it really deserves this kind of attention. So that's why this is there. Also, I'm going to go back and I'm going to make all the old commissioned videos public. I keep them private because I don't want to mess with my algorithm. But my algorithm is so messed right now. Would you like this, please? Would you smash the like bucket? Would you subscribe, Would you go and buy a mug? This is my dad's version of my mug. He didn't use it as much as I use mine. So, so I get this request from Boden. And the way he says it is this album came out at the start of 2022 and was hailed to be the best rap album of the year. And so you sort of expect something to dethrone it, but from January to December, it was uncontested. And also it happens to have translations on Lyric Genius, so it's very good. He also went on to note that he agrees that France is number 2 in hip-hop, but not to sleep on the D.A.CH region. Deutschland, Austria, Switzerland. So Germany, Switzerland, SAG. Switzerland, Austria, Germany. And in terms of Germany, stay tuned to the end of the video. I will show you some pictures of when I was in Germany in 2002. What did I do? Where did I go? What historical sites did I see? What artists whose art is here, house did I visit? I have covered German rap before. I covered m.A.A.D, which I liked quite a bit, but isn't nearly as good as this. This OG Keemo album is just insane. I had my students, cover, every once in a while I have my students cover international rap, and a few years ago, someone was talking about German rap, which is, Deutsch rap, and he's just like, douche rap? I guess it's all spoken in douche. So every time I think of Deutsch rap, I think of that student. He's graduated, he's got a job. I think he works at a hotel now. I think he may be even assistant manager at a hotel. But anyways, douche rap. So this album, OG Keemo, who's a very interesting character. He is German and Sudanese. Okay. If you don't know, by the way, lots of stuff is happening in Sudan right now. I suggest you look it up. It's very sad, sort of a proto-civil war happening. And he is from the city of Mainz, M.A.A.N.Z. So I would first of all like to thank you, Bowden. I would like to thank you, OG Keemo. I have become a fan of football, European football, not American football. And I don't have a team in Germany yet. I know that I'm not going to root for Bayern because, I don't want to just be a bandwagon fan. And I kind of like Dortmund, but they're the second. So now I'm going to support Mainz, who beat Bayern last week, 3-1. So I now officially have a German soccer team thanks to this album. I don't like that their color is red, but what are you going to do? So that's OG Keemo, right? He's this great lyricist, real name Karim Joel Martin. His story is a story of what I assume to be a lot of people who live in Germany, who come from other countries and live and work there because of the great economy and opportunities. And then his producer is Dominic D'Amato, also known as Funkvater Frank. Funkvater Frank? I think it's like Funk Father. I think that's the idea. Like Darth Vader is like Dark Father in German. That whole thing. So it's this really nice two-people album. Rapper and producer, and all the way through. The rapping is super strong. I'm going to get really into the details of how he uses the German language, of the thematics that he draws up. And the production all the way through vacillates between a sort of well-meditated, somewhat intellectual style of production, and then just stupid head nod, head banging modern rap. To draw the Kendrick comparison, basically it's like half the songs are Butterfly, half the songs are Damn. So, Man Bites Dog. So this title is very important to understand, and I'm going to explain to you by the end of this video why it's called this. Now, the term man bites dog is an old term about journalism, that when a dog bites a man, it's not news, but when a man bites a dog, that's so unpredictable, that's so rare, that is news. Okay, so that's the greater context. So the question is, what does this mean? Who is the man and who is the dog in this story? Going back to my Kendrick comparison that he does not want me to make, it really is his ability to write street poetry, very conscious while also being very gangster. He seems to be, and I don't know, I'm not in Germany, but I imagine, sorry, this weird table over here. I imagine that he is the kind of artist that can be appreciated in the streets and, in the schools, right? He just has that kind of ability. Lots of rapping about purple bills, which is fun, because $100 bills are blue in America now, and 500 euro bills are purple. So all this talk about magenta. And the whole narrative structure is what's the most interesting thing here. There's a lot of good storytellers in rap music, but this is maybe the best told story in rap music. As far as a full album goes, I think Good Kid, Mad City is a better album. Jesus Christ, it's Good Kid, Mad City. But as far as a story goes, the narrative is so fractured. He's so sort of insistent on not having a through line that it doesn't quite work for me as a story as well as this album does. So what is this story? Well, it's about a trio. It's about this very metaphorical trio. Of neutrality, innocence, and hatred. Okay? And in these kinds of stories, the hatred usually ends up living longer than innocence. Often innocence is sacrificed to show the inequality of life, to show the cruelty of life. And usually the story is told through the lens of the neutral figure. Okay, so we have these three figures. We have Karim, who is the rapper. That's his actual name. That's OG Keemo's name. He's the sort of neutral figure. Then we have Malik, who is the very violent gangster, filled with hate. And then we have Yasha, the kind of slightly more innocent, slightly more disenfranchised, very sad figure. And these three figures symbolically represent something that we've seen all the time in fiction. I mean, it made me think initially of the film M.A.A.D by Mathieu Kassovitz, the French movie about life in the French suburbs, in the Parisian suburbs, where, you know, Hubert as kind of the everyman, and Saïd as the innocent, and Vince as the symbol of hatred. Big Lebowski, okay? You have Jeffrey acting as the neutral, you have Donnie as the innocent, and you have Walter as the figure of hatred and anger. Even American Graffiti at times reminds me of this album, just sort of the sense of summer ending and these figures changing and this transition in life. But the movie it reminds me most of, you see behind me, is Boys in the Hood by John Singleton, where you have this figure of Trey, played by Cuba Gooding Jr., who moves into a tough neighborhood, and he connects with old friends. And like it's basically like the life of Compton, of South Central Los Angeles, is going to kill him unless he figures out a way to get out. And he ends up befriending a sort of innocent style figure, Ricky, who's going to go to college, who has all these scholarships, and he's on his way out, and he's just so sweet and so innocent, and you like him even more than you like Trey. And then you have Doughboy, played by Ice Cube, always very good at pretending to be a gangster. Damn, it feels good to pretend to be a gangster. And you know, he's that figure of hatred. He's the figure who constantly is doing more crime, who's more violent, who's more there. And of course, spoiler alert, innocence dies. The main figure moves on, and Doughboy ends up going to jail, and I think he dies too. I think we learned that in the post-credit scene. You know, so to a certain degree, I would say you can see that in Good Kid, Mad City, you know, with Dave and Dave's brother, and maybe even Shireen, although it's hard to figure out where women fit into this German album. But let's kind of get over these guys. You know, so we have Karim, who's this OG Keemo himself. He's something of a blank slate. He outgrows the street. This is the album of him realizing that he has outgrown the street, and he feels guilt. He's totally motivated by like ambition and a search for meaning. Malik is vicious, funny. He's the thug gangster. He's the man of the streets. His music, his voice dominates this album. It's the majority of this album, and it makes sense because it's way more fun. Everybody remembers O-Dog from Menace to Society. I don't remember the name of I didn't remember Trey was his name. I had to look it up. Everyone remembers Doughboy. You know, everyone was going to remember Malik. He's the most fun because, you know, he's motivated by greed and by hatred. And then we have Yasha, this figure who's very traumatized and emotional, who's obsessed with death until he kills himself. He's not motivated by hate or greed. He's not motivated by ambition. He's motivated by a sort of pointless search for meaning. And all this is against this backdrop of Mainz, of a place I've never been. I've been in a lot of places in Germany, as you'll see at the end of the video, but I've never been to Mainz. But I get the sense that it's like many European cities where there have to be areas where there's sort of tall, state-built buildings where recent immigrants are put, and sort of concentrated poverty effects, all kind of there. And in that setting, it's hard to find meaning. So we have these three figures, and I'm sort of representing them as sort of innocence and neutrality and violence. But then also, I mean, we're in the D.A.CH, you know? So you have to mention cultural touchstones of the D.A.CH region, right? You have to mention Freud. I think it's on purpose here. I think that we're supposed to read Karim as the ego. I think we're supposed to read Yasha as a super ego. And we're supposed to read Malik as id. like the super ego, like the sense of how things should be. That feels very much, that's Yasha. Ego is basically just reaching your sort of most adult and in control self, and then id just being totally wild and driven by pleasure. That appears to be the basic outline. And there's probably, listen, this album's a year and a half old. I bet there's already been articles written about that, but I don't know. I haven't read the articles. So even at my dad's house, it's going to be a little bit loud. There's people mowing the lawn. Eventually I have some people coming and we're like throwing away all these boxes of books. It's really sad. My dad had this beautiful book collection. Beautiful. But it all got like, all these mice pooped on it. So it's all got to go. Anyways, so this video might end up being edited. We'll have to see. So, we have the id, superego, and id. And then also on top of that, there's yet another third way of thinking about it, which is that of the human, the dog, and the bird. There are these three images that come back. Man bites hound. Man is very much represented by Karim, the mean person who's trying to figure out his own humanity. Malik, the angry, violent thug, is very much defined as a dog. He has a whole speech about being a dog. And then finally we have Yasha as this bird who tries to fly away. But in Mainz, in these projects, in this Siedelung, which I think is how you say hood in German. Tell me in the comments how well I'm pronouncing it. My problem with German is I pronounce it with so much emphasis. And it's because I watched a lot of Klaus Kinski movies when I was in high school. So, like, I loved Werner Herzog, So I'm always speaking German like I'm Klaus Kinski. Anyways, in the Siedelung, the birds, they don't make it. And Yasha's not going to make it either. Now, all of that is to say nothing of the fact that this is just a super good album. It's just so listenable. Each voice has a slightly different production style. The Kareem bits the Malik part is just like pop, gangster, hard rap. Yasha can be kind of like ethereal. Kareem goes between both. There's all this production by Funk Vata Frank. All this production has this like subtle layering. It's strongly catchy. At times, I have to admit, and I apologize to my Deutsche Publik, at times you just have to laugh. And I laugh at every language, If you don't speak a language, it's funny. And there are times in this album where the flow is so good. It's just so nonstop. But at a certain point, like, your mind stops even trying to parse out the words that you hear. And you just hear, auf der Autobahn, you just hear all these words. Meine Google Hub, you just hear word after word after word after word after word, But all that is not to undersell this album as just very listenable. Even if you don't speak German. I listened to this with my kids. My kids enjoyed it. My baby enjoyed it. My wife enjoyed it. It's a very listenable album. And as always, part of my goal with this channel is to fight English linguistic hegemony. The fact that we only listen to things that are in English is a part of our imperial instinct to dominate and not be made uncomfortable by difference, okay? That's why you don't listen to music in other languages. That's why Daft Punk sang in English, because they were breaking down, okay? So support non-English rap music. I don't think you can really support hip-hop and not support non-English hip-hop, unless you believe the rest of the world isn't important. In which case, dude, what are you doing watching my channel? I'm just gonna preach at you non-stop. All right, so let's get to a stamp. Click above the boys in the hood hanging out with the opening song Anfang. There's actually going to be two stamps. The first two tracks show the variety of this album. Anfang, which means beginning. Reminds me of when I was driving around in Germany. They have like 5 different words for like exit and entrance. Ausgang, Eingang, and then I think exits is like Einfahrt and Ausfahrt. Is that offensive, the fact that I do the Klaus Kinski voice? I don't mean to. I'm sorry. The thing about German is that I always assumed that you couldn't rap in German. Like, I just assumed it wasn't conducive. That French was, but that German wasn't. And obviously that's ridiculous. The thing is that different languages have different rhythms. So you have to listen to an entire album of German rap multiple times to figure out the way that the language interacts with cadence, with flow. So it just kind of starts off with this talking, like the rain sound, the hiss of vinyl. It sounds almost like a 70s mystery TV show. And then a break. And then it really starts with these great staccato strings, kind of Hans Zimmer blah of horns, but a little bit behind, Ominous 80s synthesizers join, such subtle layering all the way throughout. That's the thing, that the construction of all these beats is very fine. It's a very fine choices constantly throughout. And then he just starts rapping. And as he raps, like a subtle drum machine comes in halfway through the first verse. At times the drums will drop out and drop in to add effect. Occasionally there's like whiny synth sounds with like these two descending notes. Sometimes there's like sound effects from the story with like a phone, little synth notes just added out of nowhere. There's all these little tiny instances. Even just at one point, there's just this really high note. Just like, what's going on? Was ist mein Freund? You know? At times the voice is doubled, but there's no chorus. It's just setting the stage. This whole song is setting the stage. At the end, the strings modulate down a bit. There's like this bell and then this decisive kind of like punctuation point with the strings to end it. But this whole song is setting up this album. Is my light getting super bad here? My dad did used to complain about the light. It's okay, right? You're not even really watching me. I mean, I don't know. Those are mouse traps, by the way. So, I swear to God, it's not actually as depressing as I'm making it seem over here. So it's just a story. It's a story of this guy, Karim, who arrives in the hood. Much like Trey arrives in Boys in the Hood in South Central. It's his first Sunday night. He walks down the street and he meets Malik. The guy borrows a lighter. He kind of is constantly playing a game of, this is unintentional, cat and mouse. He's playing a game of sort of cat and mouse, making him think he might try to rob him. Malik explains how he runs the neighborhood. Then we have his backstory. His dad's from Morocco, his mom's from Mozambique. So already we have this immigrant story here, multiple different countries, multiple different cultures. I mean, Morocco and Mozambique are both African, but you couldn't possibly be further away culturally than they are. That's like saying that someone from Guatemala and someone from Alaska, technically we're in the Americas, but they're very, very different places, He effed with polo caps, raw physical violence, and Marlboro Red, Afghan hash, and French rap. I'm just going to assume that the Marlboro Reds that he's smoking are the kind of cigarettes that are sold on the black market. In most of Europe, you can go to the subway stations and there'll just be dudes selling packets of cigarettes without taxes on them. That's what I assume. And French rap. I love this detail of French rap because French rap is so important in all of Europe. And also, if his dad's from Morocco, maybe there's French in his house, And there's a soccer pro inside him. There's this theme, a pretty common theme in rap music of getting out of the hood either through music or through sports. But what I love is that there's all these little details, like the dog is named Attila and he has Umbro socks. Umbro. Seriously, how many Americans even know what Umbro is? It's some like soccer brand. It's like Adidas, but it didn't export as well. And then there's this whole moment where you think he's going to get jumped. It's great cinematic storytelling. And then it turns out he's not jumped. That's Yasha. So here we are met with the sort of sad character here, the bird, the Donnie of the story. He only likes fat blunts, booze, and tipicos. And his dad is an alcoholic, and the rest of his fam is still in Herzegovina. So, hey, this is why you study history, okay? So we're actually getting a very complicated story of the nature of what's happening in Europe. So Yasha, being from Herzegovina, means he's probably a Bosniak. He's probably somebody whose family had to leave because of the civil war in Yugoslavia, because of the genocide committed against Muslims in former Yugoslavia. And that's why he's living in Germany, That's why Zlatan Ibrahimovic played for Sweden, Like the richness and the complexity of immigration is all being shown here with these three different figures. This one, the main figure, Karim, who's never named, who's from Sudan, and then Morocco, Mozambique, and now Eastern Europe, or Eastern-ish, Europe-ish. And he makes reference to dead birds, which again, he's going to end up being a dead bird. And then it ends with this little detail of breaking into a Honda Civic. So here, the story takes off. We now have this opening night, his initiation into the neighborhood, his initiation into Mainz, his initiation into a life of petty criminality. It starts off with saying links, right, which just made me think of that Rammstein song. I'm sorry, Germans. I don't mean to be parodying your culture. I don't mean to only talk about the rare things that we know, but I can't help it, okay? Americans are very bad with German culture. Americans really don't pay enough attention to German culture because it's so... the tendency is always just to make some World War II joke and then move on. But we're really missing out. Anyways. Hey, I'm doing like an hour-long video about OG Keemo, so I get a pass, right? But still, I hear links, right? It makes me think of the Rammstein song. I'll tell you a Rammstein story later. So it opens up with almost like a blueprint-style Kanye horn intro. And then just starts rapping in this like full bounce style beat, like old school. It wasn't that epic style from the first track. It's just a banger. There's no chorus here either, just that little breakdown with the horns. And it's this car, this Honda Civic that he's breaking into. He talks about having 5 fingers, 5 fingers. I do know how to count to 5 in German sometimes. And 20, 20. And there's this crazy rhyming bit, so I'm going to do my best to explain the rhyming. Look in the comments, there's going to be Germans, I hope. There's going to be Germans who explain to me more good rhyming things here. But I listened to this a few times, and what I think is happening is he's using internal rhymes, not end rhymes. So internal rhymes are in the middle. So an end rhyme is like, my name is Barney Rubble, and I'm here to say, I love Fruity Pebbles in a major way. Whereas internal rhymes is where you have, that's the way that I do it. But nothing to say, but just to it, right? So then the say and the may is in the middle of the line. So I think, Scheiß nicht macht sicher, ich had sie gedrückt in Wink und mich wie in Schneeslichter aus dem Honda. So I did it terrible. That was terrible. That's terrible. But the idea, what I'm hearing is this like sie and nicht and schied is rhyming in the middle. Scheiß nicht, sie dich, wink ich, and then it ends with Honda, which is, obviously the made-up word in Japanese that they use for the name of their car. Isn't it made up? Or no, Toyota's made up, but Honda's a real word. I don't know. Listen, I've only got so much time. I can't go into the history of Honda. You tell me in the comments if you want. But it's fascinating to have these little internal rhymes. And that's one of those things where maybe that's a question of the German language, of its wordiness. Of this is a way to get around that difficulty. Then we get into the dog skit, Hund skit. And this is where Malik just talks about how we're just dogs. Man, like, we're just dogs, We just like eat and sleep and fuck, and then you die. We're just dogs, man. We're just dogs. So that's his worldview. That's his worldview put out there for you to see. We're going to have a counterpoint to that, but not before another absolute banger with the song Malik. The moral of the story, just 2 notes. Man, Funkvater Frank he has like these beats that are just like bang, gang, bang. They just go so hard. They're layered with drums and tinkling keyboards. This sick descending synth line. The voice gets pitched down sometimes. This is where he actually shouts out Mainz with the area code 127. Have to run from the 110, which is the 911 in Germany. So the cops are a big presence in this. They're Polizi. Let the dogs out the bars this year. M.A.A.D. 127 is the code. No one's getting me out. He refers to counting the sum and fucking the lung, which I guess is his way of smoking too much. But I like the violence of that idea. And here, Bowden, I was had a little conversation with Bowden, my Patreon. You can join my Patreon if you want. It's fun. We have fun down there. Weird little background videos, stuff like that. You can also give me a super thanks. I don't ask for that, but that's awesome. Sometimes people that just give me money because I like a video. So you can just do that too. Sweet. Or Bowden says, right after that, he says he only speaks untruth in the courts while rhyming untruths with under oath. Unwahrheit und Eid. So that's untruths and under oath. Unwahrheit unter Eid. So that's actually, I think that's a mosaic rhyme. There must be a lot more mosaic rhymes in German. So mosaic rhymes is when one word rhymes with 2 words, Like the easiest version is escargot, my cargo by Notorious B.I.G. That's 1 word, escargot. My cargo is 3 words. That's a mosaic rhyme. So there must be tons of those because so many words in German are just 2 words mixed together. like kindergarten. You know, that's a great example. It should be 2 words. There's just one. And then he says, almost all the stressed syllables in that line rhyme with one of these 3 syllables. So I listened to it again, I had a hard time listening. And you don't need to speak German to hear the flow, and you actually hear it. And it's just this great violent story about throwing up gang signs and hitting people until gold pops out of their teeth. Then we get to the song Big Boy. Simplistic beat, again, just 2 notes back and forth. Bam, bam, bam. Great rhythms, the drums are far behind, kind of a low bass hit. It actually reminds me a little bit of So Ghetto by DJ Premier and Jay-Z. It has that kind of guitar riff thing. Now that I've said it, I swear to God, listen to them back to back, okay? Listen to Big Boy, and then listen to So Ghetto off of Jay-Z's criminally underrated Volume 3. More of this Malik perspective. This is much like Kendrick. OG Keemo basically has his cake and eats it too. He has the butter and the money for the butter, as they say in French. Where he can be the badass guy who's like talking about killing and robbing and stealing and doing drugs and having sex with sluggies. Sluggies is the German term for like sluts, basically. Funny. So, he can talk about sluggies and drugs and all that, but I'm just in a character. I'm talking about it. But at the same time, you listen to it, whatever kind of cool, vicarious thrill you get from listening to gangster music, you get it from him. Sluggy gives me neck like a Pez dispenser. Do you know why it's called Pez, by the way? Pez candy, it started in Connecticut, but I think it was by German immigrants. And it's short for Pfefferminz, which is the German word for peppermint, because that was the original flavor. I swear he says ukulele, but I'm just probably thinking about soccer too much these days. He plays for PSG, a team that was beaten by Bayern. Until death, the white man comes for me. Bis mich der Tod oder der weiße Mann holt. Then there's a beat switch, a totally different vibe, like an underwater drum line, super compressed beat, great guitar lines, basically a different voice entirely. This is like adding some kind of weird emotional complexity to Malik, a character who's sort of a one-note character at times. But here it's like someone talking about him in the third person. His dad's in jail for 8 and speaks no German. Only left him a macarao, which is some kind of gun. So this gun is what he calls, that's his big boy. So we had this whole sense, this whole back half of this song, we have the understanding that Malik's father's in jail, all he left him was the gun, and now he has his gun, and that's why he's a big boy. Malik is such a sad character. He's almost the saddest character on the album, but that's without thinking about Yasha. Yasha gets his song with the song Vertigo. Starts off with some kind of pow-pow songs, and then the word pardon in French, which again I think is trying to tie it together with this sort of Moroccan origin. Almost reminds me of, yak, yak, yak from Mad City. Kind of scattered piano, low sub bass, punctuation, some like anxiety-provoking strings. You're sort of like got this hi-hat that you're waiting for. He's like really contemplating like, are we dogs? That's his question. Is there heaven for a dog? True story, when I was in 6th grade, I won free tickets to see All Dogs Go to Heaven opening night. And I didn't use them. I've always felt bad. I think I've always felt like I was going to go to hell for wasting those tickets. So is there heaven for a dog? That's a question. Super sweet beat change. Again, back-to-back beat changes here. Kind of like a rolling 808 underneath, kind of a doubled voice, more yak-yak sounds. And just really suicidal, really kind of, not even emo. It's more, it reminds me of the emotionality of like All We Got Is Us by Onyx, one of my favorite rap albums of all time. Probably top 5 rap album of all time. I made a video about it once. Und ich und alle meine N-words planen früh zu sterben. Oh, me and my ends plan to die soon. So it's about this sort of death. But then he also talks about flying away constantly because he's really this sort of bird figure. In a world full of dogs, you count at the last left of their species. You're a goon, a G, a king, a gut. And it ends with him saying, I see dead birds. I assume dead birds is some kind of like street term. I don't know what dead birds means. Tell me in the comments. but dead birds in the context of this album means him. Then we get to the Mann skit. So we had the dog skit, and now we have the man skit. In the back, the Manhattans' We Never Danced to a Love Song is playing. I tracked it down. And this is great, because this is Yasha explaining why the whole dog theory of Malik doesn't work. Because he's saying we're no longer dogs, we're humans. Man has domesticated dogs. Dogs are no longer free to eat and fucking roam. In a lot of ways, this makes Yasha very similar to Jean-Jacques Rousseau, the French. If I was at my home, I would have held up a book of Rousseau, who explained how basically society is what corrupted us and how we're born natural and we're born free. We are born like dogs. We are sort of free. But then society has made us into these things that we're not. And that's what man is. The problem is, of course, what happens to men when they're deprived of their humanity in this kind of environment. But who cares? Because next up is Suplex, another Malik song. Drum and rough, just simple two-note A, B, B, A, just old school and catchy, more production layers. It's never simplistic. It's always simple, but it's never simplistic. Suplex, if it wants beat, I hold him upside down and shake the purple out his Dickie jeans. Again, more the purple stuff there. The thing about Malik and language is that he is the most understandable for an English audience. And that's because he uses the most English. And I think he uses the most English because that represents sort of a kind of violence that he incarnates, you know? So he incarnates gangster rap and its values, so he uses more English words. He incarnates ruthless American capitalism in a way, the dark side of American capitalism, super free market capitalism. So it makes sense that he uses more English words. Ja, jump aus dem Whip. You understand what I'm saying? Do you see how you speak German? Ja, jump aus dem Whip. Mach ich zu Wagyu beef. 5 N-words in Fachstuhl, schwarze Hoodies, Wein wie eine Nazgul. So he's talking about the Nazgul from Lord of the Rings wearing black hoodies. Big man Nosferatu. I brought it all home. Klaus Kinski played Nosferatu in the disappointing remake of Nosferatu by Werner Herzog in 1980. Keine einen Beach Boy van seinem Tattoo, geh ihm mit sei Shit und komm zurück, nur für den Part 2. Do you see that mixture of English, part 2, bitch boy, N-words, hoodies, jump, whip? We then get the song 2009. And this is like, there's a little section, a little mid-section here where it's Kareem, you know, the main guy, OG Keemo. Not these two sort of alter egos, you know? Very gentle, nostalgic for the year 2009, gentle piano. He keeps talking about her. I don't know if her is an actual person or sort of representation of maybe his gun or maybe some sense of hope or maybe the rain itself. He talks about his life of crime, of push bricks in 16 federal states und pushen bricks in Shenzhen Bundesländer. So he's talking about the different states in Germany, like Saarbrück. He's always like his life at the edges, you know. I should have been a pro, actually. A-I-B-B, so having a little Arabic thrown in there, but that's another story. I sweat the coop, jump in the shower, get wet, dry in the fresh air, dip and visit my pops for a good game of chess, ask me what to do. I eat good for a dude without Abitur. Abitur is like a degree in Germany, so he's not as educated, but he does well. And this whole thing, now we're entering this whole phase of a kind of nostalgia. And we understand that even though he was telling the story in the beginning from the perspective of somebody who just enters this world, here he is and he's remembering what it was like in 2009. And this mythical person he's talking to reminds him of Cash in the summertime. And we have all these reminiscences. So, you know, Proust, going back to French, a Frenchman who loves German culture very much. Proust, who's probably responsible, by the way, for The Ride of the Valkyries by Wagner being used all the time, because he used that to describe an air raid once in France. Proust helps connect the sense of memory and smell. That's what he's probably most famous for with his Madeleine, where his main character eats something as an adult, and the smell of that food connects him to a time when he ate it as a child, and all of his life opens up before him. This next song, Petrichor. Petrichor is a word in English. I never heard this word. My wife had heard it, of course, because she's smarter than I am. But petrichor in English and in German means the smell of, like, rain? Like, does rain have a smell? Yeah, it does. When have you smelled rain? So he's, like, remembering the smell of summer rain. Who said German isn't good for poetry, right? Come on. And then Sunpa, the singer, comes on singing about the sun shining. This is barely even a beat. There's kind of like the sound of rain. And we have this moment here. I mentioned American Graffiti earlier. American Graffiti is such a great movie because it's about the end of high school. It's about the end of summer and where everyone's about to move on with their lives. And Malik is somebody who cannot move on. The anger character cannot move on. The O-Dog, the doughboy, cannot move on. But Kareem has to move on. So Malik is holding on to the summer, on to stupidity. He doesn't know when the party's over. And it's at this point you realize this whole album is a Bildungsroman. Okay? That is a term which in academic circles is not translated into English. We call it a coming-of-age story. But that isn't quite right. Bildungsroman in German really applies to this sense of a novel of one building, like your personality being built. That's what we're having. It's not just coming of age. So we're realizing it's a Bildungsroman. Next song is called Reagan. And here we have Kareem. Jesus Christ. Sorry. If you know what this is, that made you very anxious. If you don't know what this is, I'm going to explain it later because I'm going to tie this in. Jeez. It's okay. It's okay. So, this Regen song is about Kareem moving on with his life. And this is the problem. He's going to move on. He's quoting When It Rains, It Pours, the song by 50 Cent and Dr. Dre. It sounds like it's like a sound-alike, but not exactly the same thing. And we start to see this is the sense where the summer is over for Kareem. Kareem is now no longer wanting to be like Malik. Do-rag sits on my head like a crown. My Nina is my scepter, 9mm. I don't wear ermine, I wear Kevlar. Purple keeps my knife sharp, my table full of food and my bed warm. But every day a bit less than yesterday. So he's starting to lose it. And he sort of like repeats this thing. Den Venice, regnet, richtig. It sort of reminds me of Le Tempo by I Am. There's a sort of repetition in the chorus. It feels to me like it's like 50 Cent and I Am mixed together. That's cool. Then we get to the song Sandman? Listen, okay? If you are a French academic, there are certain things you have to learn in German. One of them is unheimlich, which is this theory that Freud developed for describing the uncanny. Okay, that's how we translate that into English. But unheimlich in German means unhomelike. And he illustrates this idea with a story by the German author E.T.A. Hoffmann, The Sandman. This weird, wonderful story filled with like children being scared and there's robots in there. It's a very famous story, but part of what makes it so interesting is it's hard to figure out like what's truth and what's fiction and what's dream and what's not. That sense of uncanny, that sense of the unheimlich is shown so well in E.T.A. Hoffmann's story that literary critics use it to this day to illustrate what is unheimlich, So is Sandman supposed to be a Hoffman-esque Sandman? I don't think so. But this is where I want to remind you of something that if you're American, you don't understand. Europeans are better educated than Americans. Don't get pissed at me, okay? I'm going to have to edit this. I'm getting a phone call. That was the trash people. They're calling to tell me that they're not coming soon. Anyways. So, I hate to tell you, but Europeans are better educated than Americans. I don't think Europeans are smarter than Americans. I don't think any human being is smarter than any other human being. I think we all contain the same capacity for brilliance, creativity, rhythm, joy, love, intellect, all that. But the education system is just better for general education. Your rapper who made it through high school in France or Germany is 10 to 100 times better educated than a rapper who made it through high school in America. Like, that's how drastic it is. In European school systems, they study philosophy and they study literature in a way that is not watered down and is much more significant and important. So, now, of course, there's downsides. Their systems are much more rigid. They have a lot less flexibility for social mobility. It's a lot more of a sort of rigid caste system in a lot of European cities where countries where you decide what track you're going to be on when you're a kid, and then you basically end up being that way till you're an adult. There's all sorts of good and bad things about American systems and European systems. So is this a direct reference to Hoffman? Probably not, but probably Hoffman informs it, because the figure of a character who comes in the middle of the night and throws sand in your eyeballs when you're a baby to make you sleep is horrific. And that's who Malik is. He is this character. Great, like, curly, stressful strings, almost Arabic sounding, great kind of bass thump, very modern and good. Sort of English and German all mixed in together. Again, Malik is much more English. Und ihr Erbe macht in all black North Face und schwarzen Nike Air. All black North Face and black Nike Air. Ich bin in der Trap. Ich bin ein Berliner. Ich bin in der Trap. And then he makes this reference to Keith Haring. And it's funny because I was listening to this with my daughter, and my daughter was like, wait, is he gay? Is he like making reference to Keith Haring as a gay hero? I'm like, I don't know. Sandman, I don't know. But actually, where his body once was is now a Keith Haring. I told you, Europeans are better educated than Americans, on balance. I didn't say smarter, I said better educated. That's pretty fun. The idea of a body chalk looking like Keith Haring. And then the chorus is super simple. Sandmann comes. And then just this whole line of German, just all these weird slant rhymes in German. Das ist nicht fair. N-words flexen wie Stallone. Oh, als waren sie an der Front wie in Vietcong. Doch in Präsidium sind sie Celine Dion. N-words liegen schön warm, scheißen auf weiß wie in Biathlon. Oh, 55 clan member Zal Magenta. I think you can pick up some of those words. Next song is called Birds. Vogel. V-O-G-E-L. Okay. This is just sad. This is just a sad song of Yasha's suicide. I'm not a fan of the beat, but it's necessary. It's necessary to have a beat that I don't love right here. These kind of light strings and low bass, barely any drums. It's all about the words, all about the story of Yasha. When I've been to Germany two main times. One time I was in Berlin, and I was constantly dropping my gloves in the metro. So one of the words that I learned how to say was Handschuh, because hand shoe. That's what they call gloves. So at a certain point in this song, he mentions Handschuh. I go, Handschuh. I had that word stuck in my head, and then I went to go visit my Moroccan friend in Paris, and I was joking around. Handschuh, and I kept on saying it. She's like, why are you saying that word? I was like, well, just because it means glove in German. She's like, oh, that's an Arabic word for a prepubescent girl's vagina. Why do you have a different word? Anyways, say cultural differences. But when you actually read the lyrics here, it's heartbreaking. He's personifying the city as like a giant, and the giant is this building that he's going up. I know guys who haven't aged since they were 17. My bro's 29. He still hangs out in the trenches like he's happy. So this is like him saying that he doesn't want to live this life forever. the wasted life of everyone around him. And there's all this crazy poetic detail where he's going up to the top of a roof to jump off and kill himself. The numbers on the wall tremble in red as the 5 turns to 6 with a line. You know, like on an LED readout. Okay, so 5 is like that, right? So how do you make a 5 into a 6 on an LED readout? You just add one line. You add that line. So it's like this, right? It's awesome. Baba says he's smart. Mom says he isn't. Hey, Baba. That's I think a Turkish origin of the word for father. If this guy is a Bosniak, he would probably call his father Babo, right? Or Baba or some variation thereof, not Papa. And all this stuff about sons who fuck up their future for a few grams, fathers who left their country 20 years ago in the hope that we'd make a career as lawyers. So this whole idea of the immigrant's dream, and that all 3 of these guys represent the listlessness, the lack of attaining this dream, the lack of social mobility. Instead of coming to a new country and making it, they come to a new country and just end up stealing Honda Civics and robbing people for their magenta. And he says, Scheisse, I'm sorry, damn it. And he just jumps off the roof and kills himself. I mentioned the film M.A.A.D earlier. I'm sorry, this was like my great-grandfather's chair. There are these like leather chairs. So you're going to hear that a little bit. In the movie M.A.A.D, the lead character, one of the 3 characters tells a joke. And the story is about a guy who jumps off the roof. And the entire way down, he says, Jusqu'ici tout va bien. So far, so good. And that's this kind of joke, like so far, so good up until you hit the ground, right? The important part is not the fall, it's the landing. And M.A.A.D is sort of about the history of France and basically about France jumping off the roof and saying so far, so good, right? I think this might be intentional that he's jumping off of a roof. I think it's supposed to be evoking that kind of hopelessness, that kind of dark sense. But it doesn't matter, because now we're in the song Ziller. It's kind of a more gentle beat. It's featuring someone named Gianni Suave. I think he's from Frankfurt. The chorus is so weird because he says the word hallelujah a couple times. And it just doesn't fit. Like he says moonwalk and hallelujah. And there's something about the roundness and the softness of those words, hallelujah, moonwalk, that it really stands out from the rest of the album with its fairly jumpy, pointy, stabby German. This reminded my kids very strongly of the 90s rap group Souls of Mischief. I don't know what kind of algorithm led them to that very obscure underground rap group from the 90s. I owned their tape, but I never loved them. But my kids loved them. Anyways, I don't know why it's called Ziller. It might be like in reference to Godzilla, because he calls himself that. He uses the term poltergeist quite often. You hear poltergeist all over this album. And it's funny because, Geist means ghost in German. And polter means like to cause a problem. So a poltergeist is a ghost who causes a problem, not just a ghost. Did you know that? So this is why language is so great. Because they have a word for ghosts that fuck with you. Okay? They had to it's not enough to be a ghost. I'm in my father's house. I'm surrounded by ghosts. But no one is poltering me. I'm not being poltered, okay? Okay, this almost fell over, but that's because I hit it with my elbow, okay? There's no poltering going on at all right here. I'm just living with a ghost, not with a poltergeist. So what is a poltergeist? A ghost is someone who comes in and affects you and changes you. And we'll see these figures are sort of like invisible in society. And because they are lashing out at society through their criminality, they become like poltergeists. They become ghosts who cause problems. Yeah, I'm just taking a second for you to just sit there and go, damn, this sounds like a great album, Skye. Quick pew pew separates him from his face tat. Trust ho, what do you know of killers? Run through the blocks like Godzilla's, shoot like Damian Lillard. I guess they watch a lot of NBA because there's a bunch of NBA references in here. I love the German here. Nach, snatch, poi, easy, nein, mehr, nur Standpunkt. Und ich mach Geld in Hammerdehen, ho ich bach un Samsung. So he somehow manages Standpunkt with Samsung. Next song is called Tole, which means fool. Who's the fool? So there's two characters left, Malik and Karim. This is the question. Who's a fool? Crackle of a record, 80 synthesizer washing in, tinkling bell sounds, drum sounds are way in the back, some saxophone comes through. This is one of those songs where there's just German. Douche rap. Just Deutsche, 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 Deutsche. Sometimes the beat will come out and it's just Deutsche, 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 Deutsche. But this is really just Malik. This is sort of his death rattle. You know, the Vertigo, the Vogel was Yasha's death rattle. This is basically Malik's death rattle. It's not his last song on the album, but this is him making his big statement about his life. He uses the word thotties. Fuck the same thotties, piss on the same spots, still deal at the 12th floor. What, you think you're the hero because you got some money? I'm the reason it's ugly here. All you rap about is me. I ask myself, how can you still sleep at night? This is awesome. This is a rapper personifying the real gangster that the rapper is rapping about once he is no longer a real gangster. So once you are no longer a criminal, you either have to lie and say that you are being a criminal now, or you have to pretend that you are one of the people who you left behind. Makes me think of the fact that Kendrick Lamar's album cover, To Pimp a Butterfly, features all of his friends from his hood. But they're not all famous, they're not all rich. They're on that album cover, they're still stuck there. This is the guy who's still stuck there. This is Malik, who's bitter about him moving on. You never come home. Hausa. You can tell anyone that House Dillensberger? That's all I can hear when he keeps on saying Hausa. Don't you dare dropping this postal code in a song again. That was never optional. You grew up here, you have us in your blood, and you dare to talk about Yasha in an interlude? I hope his death at least served your image. Birds fly, but they never belong in the booth. Just this amazing image of this character who's raging at the rapper. This is the rapper rapping in the voice of his most harsh critic from back home, telling him, you never come home. You never come home. My brain is pulp and my knife is rusty. Soft bones under this tracksuit. Such great poetic details. This is why OG Keemo is so great. Mein Gein ist Brei, mein Messer ist eingerostet. Weiche Nochtchen unterm Trainingszug. Zug. Wait, doesn't Zug mean train? So training Zug is like training train? You lack principles, Karim, I swear. That's this insult. So we had this whole theme of coming home. And that's why I have this behind me. So this is part of my father's estate. I'm actually mailing this today out to my brother. And this is The Prodigal Son by Albrecht Dürer, who is the greatest printmaker of all time. Lived in Germany right around 1500. I think he made this maybe 1497, something like that. And this is the story of the prodigal son, the guy who comes back to his father after being far away. So I think this song is sort of a song about the opposite of a prodigal son. That OG Keemo is rapping about his life back home in his Siedelung. Okay, if we can imagine this is the Siedelung. But instead of coming back to his father, he's like coming back to Malik, coming back to criminality and trying to come to terms with the fact that he's been away for so long. But the thing is, behind this door, there's a father saying, you can't come home. You can't come home. You think you're too good for the Siedlung. You think you're too good for Mainz. Don't you dare say that it's not. Don't you dare drop the name of our hood in your songs. That's that survivor guilt. That's him giving voice to his harshest critic. I'm sorry, in a way, that sort of makes Malik sort of actually the superego, like the sort of believing, like the sort of like systems. I'm not enough of a Freudian. Nothing holds me in these buildings, but I can't make it out since you ran away. So he's in this place where he now blames his inability to move on OG Keemo. Next song is called Blanco, featuring Quam E. This is just another badass song. Hey, Funkwater Frank, thank you so much for the 808 cowbell sound. We don't get enough of the cowbell sound. We get... it's great. This might be the best produced song here. It's got these orchestral hits. At a certain point, there's like a repetition of a sound that kind of reminds me of Public Enemy, number one. One. And what's great is that Malik had all these insights in the last song about his position, about how he's trapped, about who Yasha was, about who Kareem is. And on this song, wipe the slate clean. It's just a badass song about wanting to kill cops and about buying white t-shirts for €7. Dem Franchise Boys, or as they're called in German, Der Franchise Boys. Had that song about white tees, the idea of wearing white tees. And now we have this idea that, they're wearing white tees, which means that they're wearing white sheets, which means they're like Geist. And of course, because they're criminals, it means they're like Poltergeist. It's like we're watching Pac-Man, okay? They're all wearing these white shirts. And we understand that the future for Malik is bleak. Like Raphael Sadiq, with his super freak physique. Such a geek. Stavros is a name that is Greek. And poireau is the French word for the leek. That's the most I've ever rhymed on this channel. I must be inspired. It's bleak for Malik because he's not going to continue on. He's going to die. He can't get out. So we have three figures. One who killed himself. And this is a basic idea which is also in Good Kid, Mad City. And it's a theme in Kendrick Lamar's work, which is that the only way out of the hood is suicide. Like, that's one of the few ways you can actually control your own death. And that's what we're seeing here. And then we get to the song Ende. E-N-D-E. Which I assume means end. Eingang. Ausfahrt. Again, it's barely a beat in the beginning. He makes reference to the 13th of September. Why? Why is he saying my birthday? Why is my face on a Japanese box? That's my birthday, September 13th. It's awesome. 13 September, I find myself 5 weekdays before the official deadline of the album submission. This is a confession. This is very Kendrick again. He's just giving a confession about his life, about what he's going to do, about how he has to finish this album, about how he can't deal with the subjects, how he can't separate himself, how he can't do it, the pain of releasing this album. The painful nostalgia for 2009 when he came into the city, when he was a small crook. The pain of knowing that his friend killed himself. The pain of knowing that his other friend can't forgive him for growing up. The pain of not having a house anymore. Of not having a house, of not having a home, of not having anywhere he can return to because he's outgrown it. All of this pain of surviving. He even says survivor's guilt in here. This goes to the listener that can't understand what boys like you and me saw, telling us that we can't understand. And this is where he says that he can't stand the Kendrick comparison. Listen, OG Keemo, if you don't want to be compared to Kendrick Lamar, then stop making awesome rap albums that are concerning, awesome cinematic rap albums around the theme of survivor's guilt that are achingly poetic and streetwise as well, okay? Don't be so good, okay? Don't be, people don't accidentally compare Hyundais to BMWs because they're not good enough cars, okay? To take something that's not German to compare it to something that is German, okay? You make a really good car, you can compare it to a good German car. Anyways, it's your fault, OG, that I'm comparing you to Kendrick. Which brings us to the title, Mann Beisst Hund. In the end, there's one man, one bird, dead bird, and one dog. The dog whose view is a sort of essentialist view of existence, that we are born animals and we're supposed to live like animals and we'll die like animals, up against this representation of humanity, which is OG Keemo, which is much more complex, much more growth. And in the end, in life in general, the dog bites the man. The criminal, the savage, to use very weird terminology, problematic terminology, the criminal, the outsider, attacks the civilized person. This album represents the opposite. This shows how the humanity of Karim affects and hurts the Hund, the dog. How he hurts the dog, how he abandoned his hood, his life, is a violence against the dog. That's why it's man bites dog. At least that's my theory. That's me in Köln or Cologne. I'm on one of those little things there. A little ad for Bitburger. It's pretty good beer. So I went to Nuremberg to go to Albrecht Dürer's house. I went to his house, a very good house. And of course, while you're there, you can also visit the parade grounds where Hitler gave his speech in Nuremberg. And what I love about it is that, like, there's just, like, old beers there. You know, like, that's the Zeppelin ground, you know? And people just go there and just throw beers, you know? Because history is a long time ago. Das ist der Campingplatz. Mein Auto. Mein Ford Focus. So when I drove around Germany, I just stayed in camping places, Campingplatz, and I slept in the front seat of this Ford Focus. And I woke up every morning and listened to the song Europa Endlos by Kraftwerk. This is me at the Zeppelin Museum, because I love Led Zeppelin, and I also love dirigibles. So there I am. This is before cell phones, so this is with the disposable camera. This is right near Nuremberg. This is the Playmobil, like the Playmobil sort of like play park. My brother loves Playmobil. The same brother who I'm sending that Dürer to, he loves Playmobil. So I took a bunch of pictures there. It's just a random picture, someplace in Germany. I don't even know where that is, but that's kind of what Germany is sort of like. These are the dudes who I met. These are the dudes who I met in a German hostel. I was asleep and they came in and they didn't speak any English, so we spoke in French. And they're from Saarbrück, a very small part of Germany. They sang a song to me, Die ohne Brück entlang, some like Bob Marley mix up with that. And we went out to go get beer at 2 o'clock in the morning. And they were always fighting. They're like R2-D2 and C-3PO. They were constantly fighting. And while they were fighting, I had Rammstein in my car. And I kept turning up the volume. So they just kept yelling at each other longer and longer. And when I left Germany, I left in a cargo ship. So I went to Hamburg and I went in a cargo ship to Montreal. And that's a picture out my window. There you go. I really do love Germany. I hope to go back. Well, actually, I'm going back this summer, I think. I think I'm maybe going to Munich. I don't know. I'm definitely going to Austria. So I'll be in D.A.CH. So there you go. There's my review. Thank you to Boden. Thank you to the rest of my Patreons for supporting this channel. Thank you to all you who have sat through this long video. And I hope you learned something, because this is some really great music. And really, thank you to all my Patreons, especially the ones who get me to listen to music that I missed, because there's too much good music and too little time. All right, there's the camera.